All right, today we're going inside the machine. We're going to follow the money to see exactly how the European Union makes sure that billions of euros are actually spent correctly. Let's dive in.
I mean, just think about it for a second. You've got different countries, different laws, different languages, and hundreds of organizations all spending money from the same giant pot. The potential for things to go wrong, for mistakes, or, worse, is just massive.
And that, right there, is the billion-euro question. How do you possibly build a system that can track every single expense, but doesn't get so bogged down in red tape that it stops important work from actually happening? Well, it turns out there's a playbook for that.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at the accountability challenge itself. Then we'll get into the unified rulebook and meet the key players. After that, we'll actually follow the money, step by step. We'll even get a compliance guide for partners. And finally, we'll zoom out to see the real purpose behind this whole system.
To make this real, we're going to focus on one specific program, the Interreg Next Black Sea Basin Program. It funds projects across several countries in that region. So this isn't some abstract idea. This is about making sure money for real-world development is spent exactly the way it's supposed to be.
And here's what's so crucial to understand. This whole complicated system of checks and balances isn't just bureaucracy for the sake of it. It's the foundation of everything. If people can't trust that the money is being used well, the whole idea of international cooperation starts to fall apart. It's all about delivering actual results on the ground.
So how do you manage all that complexity? Well, the EU relies on a central document. For this program, it's called the Guide for Control. You can think of it as the ultimate instruction manual for financial accountability. And to really get it, first we need to meet the main characters in this story.
So first up, you have the partner. This is the organization, it could be a university, an NGO, a local government, that actually gets the grant money and does the work. They're the ones on the front lines, spending the cash to get the project done.
Then you've got the lead partner. Think of them as the team captain. They're the ones who coordinate all the different partners, they sign the main contract, and ultimately, they're responsible for the entire project. The buck really does stop with them.
And finally, the star of our show, the controller. This person is an independent auditor, basically a financial detective. Their only job is to go through the books of each partner and make sure every single expense they claim is legit. They are the gatekeepers, and they work for the program, not the people they're auditing.
Now these are the core principles that make the whole thing work. First, everything is done digitally in one central system. That creates an instant, unchangeable audit trail. Then every single report gets checked by a controller, who has to be completely independent, no conflicts of interest allowed. And of course, partners have to keep all the original documents. It's all designed to create a crystal clear, traceable path for every single euro.
Okay, so we've met the players, we know the principles, now let's get into the nitty-gritty. What does our financial detective, the controller, actually do? How do they follow the money?
The official guide has this long 11-point checklist for every expense, but it really all boils down to these 5 simple questions. 1. Was the cost real, and is there proof it was paid? 2. Did it happen during the project's official lifespan? 3. Was it actually in the budget? 4. Was it truly necessary for the project? And 5. Did it follow all the rules and laws? Every expense has to pass every one of these tests.
Now, of all the things a controller looks at, one area gets the most intense scrutiny: public procurement. This is basically the process of buying stuff: goods, services, construction. It's where huge amounts of money change hands, and frankly, it's where the risk for fraud and favoritism is the highest.
So controllers are trained to look for these classic red flags. Things like different companies submitting bids that have the exact same typos. Or maybe a really big contract gets split up into smaller ones, just small enough to sneak under the radar of the stricter rules. These are the kinds of telltale signs that show a process might be rigged.
Okay, so we've seen how the controller thinks. But what about the folks on the other side? The project partners on the ground? How do they get through this whole process without pulling their hair out? Well, the guide gives them a pretty clear roadmap for that too.
This is basically the ultimate cheat sheet. For every common expense, it shows exactly what proof you need. If you traveled, you better have your boarding pass. That's the non-negotiable proof you were actually there. If you bought equipment, you need a photo of it with the EU funding sticker on it. Hired an expert, you have to upload the report they wrote. It's pretty simple. No proof, no payment.
And here's a little detail that makes a world of difference. Just imagine you're the controller, and you have to look through hundreds of digital files. A document named scan123.pdf tells you nothing, but clear, descriptive file names, that shows you're organized, and it makes the whole process faster for everyone involved. It's just good practice.
So, we've been deep in the weeds of rules and documents and reports. Let's take a step back and zoom out. Why go through all this trouble? What's the real point of a process that is so detailed and, let's be honest, probably a bit of a pain?
A line from the guide itself really says it all. This system, it's not just a bunch of rules. It is the backbone of financial governance. It creates a shared language, a common standard that everybody, from the smallest local partner to the head of the program, has to follow.
And the payoff for all that work is huge. First, it makes sure projects actually deliver value for money. Second, it's a really powerful way to stop corruption before it even starts. And maybe most important of all, it maintains public trust. When people believe their tax money is being spent wisely, they're much more likely to support these kinds of ambitious projects in the future. So in the end, that's what this all comes down to. This super detailed system creates a level playing field. It doesn't matter if a project partner is in Romania or Turkey or Greece, the rules for how you account for the money are exactly the same. And that uniformity is what makes transparent, effective international cooperation possible.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. We've just seen the incredibly rigorous system for one EU program. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How does this stack up against how your own government spends public money? What could they learn from a system like this?